So the political streamer and debater Destiny went on Piers Morgan's show here. This is kind of interesting because at first it's Destiny versus Tommy Lauren, and then it becomes Destiny versus Piers Morgan. I don't know. I thought that was weird. It's almost like they threw in Tommy Lauren into this segment and then didn't even put her in the title. The title is Destiny versus Piers Morgan on Trump, Biden, Israel, Hamas, and more. That's almost like, geez, that's that's quite a fall from grace for Tomato Lorenzo here, because she was quite a prominent political commentator for a while there. I think it was when she was with The Blaze, Glenn Beck's network. And I don't know, she seemed to get a lot of headlines back in the day, but nobody really cares about what she says anymore. I think, honestly, I don't know if you guys remember this. She came out as like somewhat pro-choice, and then that pissed off like everybody on the right. And then ever since then, like nobody really cares what she says. So I don't know, very strange situation. So we're going to play a little bit of this in a second. Go watch the entire interview. There's definitely parts where I don't agree with anybody in the conversation, but I wanted to show you this part on Destiny smacking down Piers Morgan's Trump Apologia. I actually, as I'm recording this now, I believe Destiny is the main character or one of the main characters on Twitter, because he said something about Aaron Bushnell, the U.S. soldier who self-immolated to try to protest the U.S. supporting Israeli atrocities in Gaza. And so he's getting lit up right now on Twitter as I talk to you. But let's watch this back and forth on Trump. I think this is interesting, and I think Destiny does a good job smacking down some of the weak talking points.
I want to play a clip. This is Trump talking about foreign policy in his speech at the weekend.
Viktor Orban, somebody I respect greatly. A lot of people respect him. Tough guy, smart guy. He made the statement recently. He said, you bring back Trump, it'll all stop. They all listened to Trump. They respected Trump. He actually said it stronger than he said they were afraid of Trump. I don't want people to be afraid of me. But he said China was afraid, Russia was afraid. They were all afraid of Trump. Bring him back, and it'll all go back.
What do you think, Jess? I mean, there is an argument to say that Trump's erratic, unpredictable style on the global stage did make people think twice. I mean, not much of any serious gravity happened on his watch. He did not, as Tommy says, he didn't launch a new war anywhere. Is there some merit to the madness, if you like?
No. People seem to want to give Trump credit for some things, like people not starting wars or people not engaging in certain types of, I guess, international armed conflict decisions. But the reality is that if you analyze any of the actual particular things that he did when it came to foreign policy, most of them were the precursors for the conflict that we are now blaming on Biden. For instance, I brought up before the round of Doha talks that happened between the Taliban and the United States. The Afghanistan government wasn't even included in those talks. If you look at what's happening right now in Israel and Palestine, the whole Abraham Accords, where Donald Trump was heralded as having peace in the Middle East. The whole reason that was done, in a way, was to avoid Israel annexing the West Bank and to undermine the Palestinians there that wanted to negotiate with Israel for peace. The whole Abraham Accords completely cut them out of the conversation. It's one of the reasons why Hamas felt so slighted. It's one of the reasons why Palestinians are engaging in more violent activity against Israel, is because nobody's ever been negotiating with them. So there's like this very superficial view that you can take where you can say, oh, Donald Trump was good for foreign policy because no new wars happened to start under this 4-year time period. But if you look at what he was actually setting up in any of the countries where the conflict was going on, all he was doing was setting the stage to kick the can down the road for future conflict to erupt, which it has.
All right, Destiny.
Damn. Damn. So as you all know, if you've been watching this channel for a long time, that is one of the talking points that drives me the most crazy. And it's this zombie idea that won't go away. And it still festers and bubbles up online from time to time. It's the idea that, bro, Trump is a dove. Trump's a dove. Trump is anti-war. That's what, and when he never started any new wars. Okay, let's go through the record. Trump increased drone strikes by over 400%. By the way, Biden almost completely eliminated drone strikes. That's something he rarely gets credit for, but he should get a lot of credit for it, especially because the numbers that we got from Daniel Hale, the whistleblower, which came out during the Obama administration, is that the drone kill rate, it was 90% the wrong targets. And I'm sure that continued or got worse under Donald Trump. So let's look at the record. Increased drone strikes by over 400%. in the first raid that he approved as U.S. president. This is a raid that Obama would not approve because he thought this is too risky. Trump approved the raid, and it ended up killing a young American girl. Again, this is something people don't talk about. Seems like a big deal to me. Your first raid approved as president killed a young American girl. Trump kept us in Iraq and Afghanistan. He would talk a game about, oh, we got to stop these stupid wars. He kept us in Iraq and he kept us in Afghanistan. He assassinated a top Iranian commander, Soleimani, who was on the field and was one of the main forces fighting against ISIS at the time. So we were like a de facto air force for jihadists. And by the way, that led to retaliatory strikes as well. That was a moment where we were all shook. It was like, oh my God, this could blow up and go out of control. Because this guy was, a huge Iranian commander. It was a big deal to illegally bomb him and take him out. Trump tried to coup Venezuela multiple times. He ripped up the Iran agreement, which of course led to more increasing tensions in the Middle East. And remember, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, they verified that Iran had followed that agreement over a dozen times. The regulators went in there, said, hey, they're following the agreement to the T. And all we had to do in return is lift some of the sanctions on them and give them back some of their own money. And for that, we got to guarantee they're not going to create any nuclear weapons. He pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. I guess you could say that maybe is not foreign policy if we're talking about issues of war and peace. He's now saying over and over again, he wants war with Mexico. He wants to designate the drug cartels as terrorist organizations to allow us to go in there and do like airstrikes against them. War with our neighbor, one of our allies. He armed Saudi Arabia as they did a genocide in Yemen. In fact, when I think it was Mike Lee and Bernie Sanders got a piece of legislation through the Senate which says we need to stop materially supporting Saudi Arabia because they're doing a genocide in Yemen, what happened? Trump vetoed it. He vetoed it. Why? Well, we all know there's deep financial connections between the Saudis and the Trumps. Remember, Jared Kushner got $2 billion from them when Trump got out of office. Trump got millions of dollars from them to have their live golf events at his courses. This is after he left office, but it's evidence that when they were in there were deep financial connections as well. In fact, we know for sure hundreds of thousands went into Trump's pocket because there was this story, I think it was from the Washington Post, where all the Saudi Arabia would pay for these groups of American soldiers to stay at Trump's hotels, some sort of a retreat thing, and they were funneling him hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process of that. And remember, guys, this is not by accident. This is all like, it's a plan because it's like, we want to make sure our multi-billion-dollar weapons package gets greenlit, and so this is how we sort of grease Trump in order to get to that conclusion. And that is indeed what happened. Destiny brought up there the Abraham Accords and moving the embassy to Jerusalem, which at the very least in part led to October 7th. The whole point of the Abraham Accords was, let's put our middle finger up to Palestinians, say you don't matter, we're going to overlook you, we're going to try to make peace with Israel and other surrounding Arab countries. And it was looking at that Hamas and Palestinians said, well, fuck you then. If you're going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, if you're going to make the peace deal with no recognition for us whatsoever, we're not even involved in the conversations, well, we need to remind everybody that we're here. We need to remind everybody that we're here and we're being screwed. And so that, at the very least, in part, led to October 7th. This is Trump's foreign policy record. He hired John Bolton as one of his top foreign policy advisors. This is a guy who's never met a war he didn't like, ever. Gina Haspel is a literal torturer from the Bush administration. She was in Trump's administration as well. The idea he's anti-war is just factually not true. It's holding him to the lowest bar of all time. It just is. And then, by the way, on the Afghanistan point, my takeaway is a little different from Destiny's. My takeaway is Trump was just too much of a bitch to actually follow through and pull out when he was president. You want to know why? There were a number of times Trump came out. There was one day on Twitter where he went on this big rant about how we're going to pull out of Afghanistan. It's going to be tremendous. And what happened? The generals came in and they were like, we're not doing that. And he was like, okay, we're not doing that. So he's just he's a cuck. Remember the forces that oh my God, the deep state. I got to stand up to the deep state. He was a cuck to the deep state. He was a cuck to the generals and the Pentagon. I don't know how to talk today. He was a cuck to them. So the idea that he stands up to the deep state and he's anti-war. His record is the exact opposite. Biden actually had the balls to follow through and pull out of Afghanistan. And then it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he doesn't pull out, all these people say, warmonger Joe Biden's keeping us in Afghanistan longer. Then he actually pulls out, and it's of course ugly when you pull it out. When you pull it out. Now that sounded sexual. It's ugly when you pull out. And, people were like, wow, this is crazy. This is so ugly. How could you pull out of Afghanistan? It's like, okay, well, then what are you supposed to do? The fact of the matter is, we were there for over 20 years. It was going to be ugly when we pulled out. Guys, the government of Afghanistan was totally fake. It's a fake government. So it fell instantly to the Taliban. Nothing we could do, if we're going to pull out at any point, that was going to happen, right? So you could criticize it all you want for being ugly. But the fact of the matter is, you know what was uglier? The 20-plus year occupation. The report that came out on Afghanistan that exposed all the corruption and the graft and the profiteering and all of the weaselly nonsense that went on while we were there. All of the people who died, all of it, just like the war in Iraq, all of the, no bid contracts where these defense contractors were making a tremendous amount of money and not delivering on what they said they were going to deliver. The reconstruction that failed, where you throw billions of dollars at something and you can't even build a building, right? Like, that's really where the criticism should be. I remember when that report came out on Afghanistan, it was in the news not even for a day. Not even for a day. That should have been the let's melt down for a week straight and tell you all the specifics of what happened in Afghanistan. But the media ignored that. But when Biden pulled out and it got a little ugly, it was, oh my God, the sky's falling. And of course, the implication was, why would he pull out? He should get us back in. Insanity. So, it's just not true, right? It's just not true that Trump is anti-war, that he believes in peace. And by the way, that's not me saying Biden believes in peace, because and when you go through his record, yeah, he's done some good things, reduced the drone war massively, pulled out of Afghanistan. But he also didn't get back in the Iran agreement, even though he said he would. That's a huge strike against him. I think his policy vis-a-vis Israel is horrendous. He's arming and funding Netanyahu as he does daily slaughters in Gaza of innocent civilians. There's no denying that. 35,000 civilians dead, over 14,000 children dead, bombing every kind of civilian infrastructure imaginable. So I'm not attacking Trump to then boost Biden. I'm just saying the facts matter, and the facts are Trump is not anti-war. So stop saying he's anti-war, and stop with this dumb, you ain't got to send any new wars. That's such like a cursory level, platitude, fortune cookie bullshit response to the actual record. And nobody engages with the actual record. And I respect the fact that at least Destiny did not just take that from Piers Morgan. And there's another point in the debate, by the way, where Tommy Lawrence says a similar thing, and Destiny fires back at that as well. I'm very happy that he didn't just take that sitting down, because a lot of people hear that talking point and they melt and they don't fight back against it, when the talking point is just totally untrue. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.